A mechanic and his family join the Autobots as they are targeted by a bounty hunter from another world. This is my review of Transformers: Age of Extinction. After I saw the third Transformers movie, I was like, yep, I am completely done with this franchise now. I'm not going to see it again. But when I heard that this movie was coming out, and when this movie was going to have a completely different cast, I was like, really? A completely different cast? Huh, okay. Maybe I'll actually go see it. And I watched the trailers, and man, these trailers just bait you in, but the trailers, like all the Transformers trailers, make the movie look awesome, and I was like, looks okay, maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna go see it. And after seeing it with my dad, I have to tell you guys that it is slightly better than Transformers Dark of the Moon, but it is still a really bad movie. The good points. The thing, or should I say the person, that stood out the most in this movie was Mark Wahlberg. And when I first heard that Mark Wahlberg was going to be in this movie, I was like, okay, I wonder why he's in this movie. And after I saw him, he did have some, downfalls, but he was really good in this movie, I thought. Because he was a main character in this movie that was actually doing something, he was actually helping the Autobots in this movie. And I know people say that Shia LaBeouf's character did some stuff in the 3 other Transformers movie, but it's not like he fought off Decepticons, because in this movie, Mark Wahlberg fights off Decepticons with this really small laser plasma gun or whatever. And another thing is that Mark Wahlberg doesn't scream out like a girl every 30 minutes Optimus or Bumblebee. And for the most part, I thought that Mark Wahlberg did the best acting in this movie as well. Other than that, I thought that the sound editors, the sound mixers, did a perfect job with the sound design of this movie, as they always do in the Transformers franchise. The visual effects were done good as well, and I thought that there were some action scenes that were good too. The bad points. Okay, so the major bad point about this movie was that they had a clean slate in this movie. Well, they were still going with the story, but they could have changed how it was made and everything. But instead, they went back to the old ways, and man, I was really annoyed why they didn't do something new. And I'll get to the writing in a second, but I think the thing that I hated the most in this movie was the directing by Michael Bay. Because there's a point in this movie where I was just bored with the action. And in the past Transformers movie, I didn't really get bored with the action, but in this movie, I got bored with it. And I think the reason I was bored with the action was because there was just too many explosions happening in this movie and too many fight scenes. But there are other reasons why I didn't like his directing. Another reason was his directing with the cast and the extras. There were many moments in this movie where I felt that the supporting actors and some of the main actors weren't even trying at all sometimes. It seemed like they weren't acting, because it seemed like Michael Bay was trying to give them this weird direction or something. And I didn't like Michael Bay's direction with the extras either, because there were many moments where I saw that there were some extras that were off cue. For example, there's this one scene where scientists are around this human-made transformer, and when it's transforming into its robot form, the scientists around it are panicking and whatnot, while the guards outside are not doing anything. It's they're just standing still for 3 seconds, and then they're huh? I just find that really annoying by Michael Bay not to reshoot a scene or a certain part, because you can really see that the extras are off cue. And I hated when Michael Bay didn't reshoot scenes because of continuity issues as well, because you can distinctly see these continuity issues, and it's Michael Bay thought, yeah, the people won't notice, but I did notice, and it really annoyed me, and I wasn't focusing on the movie, I was just focusing on that part, because wait, that was over there at first, but now it's over there? What's going on there? And I don't like it when that happens, because I want to focus on the movie, but when this big continuity change happens, it's it makes me confused. And by continuity issue, I mean continuity story-wise or visually. Okay, let's go to the writing. Why did they get the same writer for this movie? Yeah, they got the same writer from the past two movies to write this movie. And why did they do that? Is it because Michael Bay likes the way he writes humor, even though it's not really good humor at all? It's like awful humor. Anyways, let's get to my point. The writing was bad story-wise, scene development-wise, character development-wise, dialogue-wise. I mean, it's the same issue from the past two movies. And another issue from the past two movies that are in this movie is the humor. I will say that the humor in Transformers Age of Extinction is tied with the humor in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. It was god-awful. There was just one mediocre scene where I chuckled a little, but other than that, there was nothing else funny about this movie. And the reason I didn't like the humor was because, like in the past two movies, it was done by annoying characters that you didn't really care for, or because it was directed, written, acted, or edited weirdly as well. For example, there's this one scene where Mark Wahlberg, his daughter, and her boyfriend crash land on this guy's car in this small spacecraft, and the guy comes out and he's like, "I hope you have insurance." And it's like, are we supposed to laugh at that? I mean, and the best thing about this part is that it's a product placement for Bud Light, because a Bud Light truck I think tipped over or something, and all the Bud Light bottles came out. So Mark Wahlberg was like, "I don't have insurance. This is a spacecraft." And then he gets the Bud Light bottle, opens the cap and starts chugging it down, and it's like, wow. Another thing that I hate about this movie was the fact that they rushed the Dinobots in this movie. And the reason I didn't like the Dinobots in this movie was because they didn't put any time behind the story for these dinosaur-looking Transformers. And for people that are into the Transformers movies only, or for people that aren't into Transformers, they're probably going to be what are these Transformers? And the only reason that I knew that these Transformers were called Dinobots was because a few years ago I was watching one of the latest Transformers animated series, and the Dinobots were in that animated series. But for people that aren't into Transformers or are only into the Transformers movies, they're probably going to be like, yeah, what are these Transformers? And the bad thing about it was that the advertising was trying to say that the Dinobots are going to have a big part in this movie, and they sort of do, I guess, in the final battle. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I didn't like the fact that they shoehorned the Dinobots in this movie. Another bad point about this movie was that it was just too long, because when I was in the movie theater when I saw this movie, I was like, man, what time is it? But when I saw Dark of the Moon at home, because sometimes at home I look at the clock to see what time it is when I'm watching a movie, but when I was watching Dark of the Moon, I was not looking at the clock, while in Age of Extinction, I was like, man, what time is it? And the part that needed to be trimmed down the most was with the third act, because the third act kept going on and on and on and on in this long action scene. And sometimes long action scenes can be done well, like the long action scene in Avengers, in the final battle of New York. But this was the part of the movie where I thought that Michael Bay did his worst directing, because he did a lot of close-ups, you couldn't really tell what's going on sometimes, there was a lot of shaky cam, it was oh my god, what is going on? Ugh. And at a certain point during this long action scene, I was like, I don't care, and I started to get bored. I was already getting bored a little bit earlier, but then, when this long action scene happened, I was just getting, really bored. And not only did the movie need to be trimmed down, but I thought the editing was bad in this movie. I think this is the worst editing in any of the Transformers movies. Because I hated the scene placement in this movie. There were some scenes that I didn't understand were different scenes, because it seemed like they could have been together in this one scene, but instead it was cut or something. And the editing didn't help the pacing at all, because the pacing was on this weird roller coaster ride. Because really fast pacing and then slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. And the final bad point I have to say about this movie is with the visual effects, because there are some visual effects that I did not like, and that's saying a lot, because in the past movies I thought that there were just a few moments where the visual effects looked cartoony, but in this movie there were just several moments where I was like, man, why didn't they not work on this part more, because this looks completely cartoony or fake. These moments mostly had to do with this thing called Transformium, and I won't get into it anymore because it sort of spoils the rest of the movie in a way. But anyways, so Transformium can transform itself into any object it wants to. But anyways, it floats above like a actor's hand when they're pretending to hold it, and it just looked so fake. And when I saw it for the first time, I was like, wow, I hope to God that in like the rest of the scenes that have to do with this transforming that it at least looks realistic. But in the rest of the scenes that like contain transformium, it's like really fake, and it was like, wow. And the reason I say wow was because it looked very cartoony, and I wonder what Michael Bay's process was. Like, I wonder what his mindset was. It was probably like this. It was like, I could fix this. I could tell these guys to fix it and say, work on it a little bit more, but who cares? I'm gonna be making millions of dollars anyway. Who cares? So like I said, I saw this movie with my dad. My dad gives this movie a 3 out of 4 stars. He thought it was a good movie, but even though Mark Wahlberg was very good in this movie, he couldn't help this movie, so I give it a 1.25 out of 4 stars. Like I said, I thought it was slightly better than Dark of the Moon, but still a really bad movie. If you're a Michael Bay fan, then yeah, you'll like it. But if you're just a regular fan, a Transformers fan, or an action movie fan, then you don't really need to see this movie at all. And you know what? I think I'm really done with this franchise. Like, I don't think I'm gonna see it at the movie theater ever again, like any of the other future movies that come out in the movie theater. I'm not gonna see in the movie theater. I'm just gonna wait to rent it on DVD and Blu-ray. So that's my review for Transformers Age of Extinction. Hope you guys liked it. And other than that, that's it.